Good afternoon and welcome, ladies and gentlemen, to the 2020 season finale of Melbourne Food and Wine Festival's Industry Forum series. My name is Pat Nourse and I'm the creative director of the Melbourne Food and Wine Festival. If you've watched anywhere near as much TV as I have this year, you'll know that at the beginning of a season finale, a lot of shows do a recap, not just of the last couple of episodes, but a whooshy, fast-paced supercut of the whole season. I was thinking about presenting one for you here, and I worried that a recap of 2020, at least as far as I'm concerned, would involve not so much whooshing and an awful lot of shots of me sitting in this very chair, broken up by the occasional moment where I take a picture of a sandwich on a rug. Let me take you back, instead, to the very beginning of this year. Back in January, I was sitting in a forum myself, not talking for once, believe it or not, but listening, or at least pulling a listening face. I was lucky enough to sit in as a guest at an industry forum session held by Worksmith, a room full of Melbourne hospitality professionals, business owners and workers talking about the health of the trade and its immediate challenges. Looking back over my notes today, I see that the key questions were raised around compliance and the complexity of the awards in hospitality, around staffing, sustainability, mental health and diversity. There was talk about growing negativity around hospitality in the news media, and with smoke still in the air from summer's bushfires, the climate crisis was high on the agenda. What nobody mentioned, of course, was the looming threat of a global health crisis that would, for a time at least, close the doors on every hospitality business in Australia. Fast forward 10 months and here we are. I don't think I need to tell any of you about the pandemic, because we're still in it. And I don't need to tell you that times are tough because you're living it every day. But life goes on. And despite the hardships, despite the challenges, people are still eating and drinking. People are still spending money or some money. People are still making food and drink and getting on with it. And while the passing of each week brings the sad news of another favorite venue somewhere in the world lost to us, we're also hearing about people opening new businesses. We're hearing that more as well. And that's what we're here to talk about today. Joining me to discuss business as unusual, the business of doing business in a pandemic, are three Victorian chefs who have started three, or more in fact, very different new businesses in 2020. Shane Delia is a chef and restaurateur who kicked off 2020 rebranding the Collingwood site of his Biggie Smalls venture with Maha Bar back in February, one of the last places I actually had dinner while things were kind of normal. It was a good old time. And Shane went for a capital P pivot as the pandemic took hold and opened Providoor, a new meal delivery service for restaurants, something right outside his wheelhouse. And now, as of when today, Shane, like a few hours ago, or is about to open, Layla on Bond Street in the CBD. Audrey Allard moved to the great state of Victoria to join Phil Wood's original lineup as an apprentice at Point Leo Estate on the Mornington Peninsula before joining the team at Loon. Mere months ago, in August, I think it was, Audrey decided to take the leap and open her own patisserie business, her first venture, as the head of her own business, Holy Sugar, which now supplies cakes and Melbourne's best donuts direct to happy customers each weekend from the Worksmith kitchens. Andrew McConnell, meanwhile, is a chef and restaurateur who has opened more than a few restaurants in his time, many of which are now benchmarks of Australian dining. This year, he opened a new restaurant and bar on the CBD on Flinders Lane, Gimlet. And then just last month, he opened the doors on Morning Market, a retail venture on Gertrude Street in Fitzroy. Audrey, I'd like to start with you, if I may. Could you talk us through the path that led you to opening Holy Sugar, your first business?
Okay, well, I think because my mum is a cheesemaker, so she has her own business.
Hi, Deb.
Yeah, she's probably watching. I've always been had a business mind and always knew that I wanted to have my own business. And this year was supposed to be a bit of a gap year. I was supposed to be finally having some fun or relaxing, having weekends off. And then
has that not happened?
No, actually it's been a bit of both. I mean, I've been doing a lot of work and then I've also allowed myself to have some fun. But yeah, definitely this year has been not what I thought it was going to be. So I was going to either use a pandemic to do a business course, or just dive straight into it and just start. And obviously I just chose to go into the deep end and start my own business. And it's what brought Holy Sugar, and it's what brings me here.
For people who are tragically unfamiliar with the product, what does Holy Sugar do?
So it's a Saturday dessert box. So each week the menu changes and orders open Tuesdays. And unfortunately, I have been selling out quite quickly. So you have to kind of set a reminder in order to get the box. But it's every Saturday that I deliver, or you pick up from Collingwood Worksmith. And yeah, it's once a week. But
and this is a very 2020 business in some ways. You're ordering pretty much exclusively through Instagram.
Yeah, it's all social
promotion. You don't have a website, you don't have anything traditional like that, and you don't have a shop front at the moment. You are operating out of the Worksmith share kitchens.
Yeah. It's a very small business. But I've always...
How many employees do you have? Sorry.
It's just me. Yeah. So I I do everything from making the box on every Tuesday, to take the photo, to then post it, to then take all the orders, all the prep, all the deliveries. I'm pushing at the moment pickup because I realized that I had like 50 orders to deliver, and I had to get one of my housemates to help me out a couple of weeks ago. So delivery is a bit of a lifesaver. Pickup's a lifesaver, but yeah, I do everything myself.
When you were tossing up those options, what did your pro-con list look like for taking the plunge to open a business in, what by any measure is a profoundly challenging year for any new business, but particularly hospitality?
Not having any family support down here was a bit of a con. I started Holy Sugar while I was still working at Loon, so our shifts were very short because of COVID. So I was still working there a couple of days a week when I started Holy Sugar, and when work started to increase, I had both. So I had no days off. Like I would finish a shift, like a 10-hour shift, and then I would have to start prepping for 50 orders the next day kind of thing. So that was a bit of a con. I wasn't very kind on myself. I think, I don't know, like the positive definitely weighed it out though. After a while,
why did it look like a good idea to you?
Because what I want, and I knew that I was kind of ready. So I think it's an investment in myself, and I was ready to start investing in myself some more. Like, I think I was just ready, and yeah.
And you didn't think the pandemic would really make a big difference one way or the other to your core product?
I hoped not, but I definitely took a risk, and I think that every risk I've taken in life has paid off. So I just trusted in that. Yeah.
Shane, Delia, you've taken a big leap this year. I mean, you've opened plenty of restaurants. You've done things that are, unpredictable sometimes. You are something of a risk taker yourself, but you have, what's the sum total of your experience running a delivery business involving, I don't know how many drivers and how many other businesses?
Yeah, look, it's a totally different business. But I think Providoor has been the culmination of all the experiences I've had through business. It pulls on all of the skill sets that I've learned from, whether it's the hospitality industry and building relationships, or if it's from media and doing TV commercials and scripting TV commercials, or if it's just in basic negotiation with, getting sort of top level deals done with logistics parties. And it's been a really interesting journey. I mean, it's hard. It's not easy. It's far removed from creating memorable experience in venues as it could possibly be for me. I mean, because as much as I wear the Providoor hat with Maha Go, and it's all about curating an experience within a box, I also wear a Providoor hat where it's purely about being the custodian of Melbourne's best brands. And I mean, Andrew is a cornerstone member of that community and was my first sign up. And, you know, I owe a lot to Andrew and his support. But also we want to make sure that we're delivering not just to the restaurants, but to the end customer, the product that they deserve and they need, because we see this as a really unique time in history for our industry to diversify, to reach new customers right across the country, and give them an experience that they may not be able to obtain in the traditional market. So it's a really exciting time. I think it's been very rewarding for everybody involved. I mean, we've generated tens of millions of dollars into the Victorian economy over the last few months, and we plan to keep doing that. So no, it's very exciting, but it has been really scary, unbelievably scary. Every morning I wake up with anxiety and every night I find it hard to go to sleep, just because you've got so many people reliant on you now. I mean, it's not just your family within your restaurant group, it's 50 other families, and all their people too. So, and then the constant pressure of letting down people is something that wanes on me.
How do you go from this being a glint in the eye to thinking, fuck it, let's do it. Let's go. Let's put our money where our mouths are.
Yeah, I mean, it's a hard one, and risk is always something that people need to. I think you need to live with an element of risk. I think measured risk, calculated risk is something I'm willing to take on. I don't gamble in the literal sense. I don't back horses. I don't back anything. I back myself. I've always backed myself. But I assess things like, you know, measure 3 times before I cut, and I've always been that kind of guy. But when I cut hard, I cut swift, and I move on. And I think that the people we have around us have enabled me to make those decisions, and having the confidence of the top end partners has really helped as well.
What did you measure before you made this cut? What were the key things that you did when you had the idea? Maybe you spoke to some friends or some people in the business, but what were the things that actually, you know, you can never have 100% comfort with a new business. As you say, risk is baked into the thing, but what got you over the line?
Yeah, I think I tested it first with my brand. I mean, I was willing to sort of, even though I hold my brand close to my heart, I was willing to test it with that and test it with our market to see how it was received, if this was a viable commodity. Should it just be, you know, tepid food in a dodgy bag to a 5-kilometre radius? Or is there actually a market outside of that? Before we started speaking to, you know, other partners, and even though Providoor in its first, you know, iteration wasn't perfect, and even in its second and third iteration now, it's still not perfect, but it's leaps and bounds ahead of where it was. And we've always got an ethos of continual improvement. So I measured with my customers. I also then had, you know, I had a lot of confidence from our platform provider. I mean, the marketplace is the engine that powers Providoor, and they're probably one of the country's leading, you know, online marketplaces, multi-seller marketplaces. And I had a great personal relationship with those guys. So just, you know, testing a few tech solutions, testing a few theories with them and with some of our business community, it was pretty evident that this was a product people wanted.
Who do you trust for advice about this sort of thing? Who do you go to, whether in or out of COVID? Who's your real sounding board on whether you're looking at a business? I've got
a great range of, I suppose I've got a very diverse inner circle, and not to rattle off titles, but just great people who are at the top of their game, whether it's from retail or major events or, you know, banking or wherever. I can definitely go to them and ask for their honest opinion, and I feel like I get their honest answer. But also fellow hospitality operators, you know, I mean, we bounce things off them, see what they feel, because they give you a different perspective as well. Like sometimes we see things just through our lens, but even just general public, you know, like I even speak to my dad. He's a consumer. You know, hey, Dad, what do you think about this? Because he's got my best interest at heart at the end of the day. What do you think? And he's very risk averse, you know. So if he thinks it might be a good idea, it probably is.
Can you give me some examples of some of the advice you had when you were thinking about opening the business that you actually incorporated into your business plan, or ways you actually changed or rethought what you were doing on the strength of what people had said to you?
Yeah, I think the first thing was making sure our legal structure was right. I mean, that's a big one. Making sure.
Can you dumb that down for me? I am not very bright.
No, okay. Making sure basically our agreements, our liabilities, our indemnity, all of those kind of things are at sort of best practice. We took on great lawyers who had good understanding of the marketplace, who had worked in e-commerce platforms before. Also working with good merchant facilities. I mean, we had a look at, you know, all the different merchant facilities that were on the market. You doing a bit of due diligence to working sure which one was going to be the right one, and then choosing them, and it's been bulletproof. I mean, the last thing you want to have on an e-commerce platform is not being able to have your payment gateway working. If you're working hard to get people online, you want to make sure that they can buy something. I mean, look, there's a whole heap of advice that we took on. The first one was about making sure that the brands were intact. People we spoke to in brand and in media were saying you have to curate the right level of brand and then make sure the relationship's strong and that the end user product it has got the brand integrity of those individual brands. So, I mean, there's so many moving parts to Providoor. It's not just a cut and paste business. We're learning every day.
Andrew, you've involved yourself in Providoor. Your brands have been, as Shane said, keystone brands in that new business. That's something completely, as far as I know, outside things that Trader House restaurants have done before. The restaurant Gimlet, or the restaurant bar Gimlet that you're sitting in right now, looks fabulous, by the way. Can't wait to get back there. Was the product of a business plan that you'd started pre-COVID. So there's that side of things. You opened in June, I think it was, between our lockdowns. And then you've also opened a second business for 2020, shall we say. That's a sort of retail and food service concept called Morning Market on Gertrude Street. That is very much a product of the pandemic. Is that right?
Yeah, very much so. I think Morning Market, previously I'd always loved working with bread and baking bread and pastry, and always toyed with the idea. It was always pretty much a romantic idea. And then when COVID hit, and my good friend Mike, who operates, Mike and Mia, who run Baker Blue, overnight lost all their wholesale, which is a good 50% of their market. I started a discussion with Mike, and we quickly flipped our wine bar, Marion, into a small bread shop. So we were buying bread from Mike and selling it at wholesale and selling it at a retail price. And then at the same time, a lot of our farmers who have found themselves in a similar position where they've primarily, largely servicing and growing and contract growing for a lot of restaurants and being stuck with a lot of vegetables. So at the same time, we're able to take a lot of vegetables direct from growers. We started our weekly vegetable boxes with those and sold those through the grocery, and started, baking cakes and pastries at the same time. So it came together as a very simple support mechanism that was going to, at that point in time, I thought maybe 4 to 6 weeks max, and then we'll get through this COVID thing and we'll
be done, right?
However, that hasn't happened, and we started building our range of cakes, and we started getting carried away and baking more and enjoying it more, and started doing sandwiches and salads, and also at the same time, as much as we were enjoying doing that, we were also listening to our customers and reading what our customers are looking for. So at the same time, it's fantastic. And this was pre-Providoor at that point in time as well. So we had, 16 chefs across Cutler & Co. and Marion, and our front of house team, looking for something to do. We wanted to keep cooking, get back in the kitchen, and that really gave us the opportunity to support, suppliers, get back in the restaurant, and I think most importantly, really connect with our customers and engage with people, which is something that I know all of us have missed. It's been quite difficult being someone in love with hospitality and loves what we do, and we love what we do and connecting with people. And that's been a big gap. That connection emotionally, I think, for a lot of people in the industry.
And what was the idea of Morning Market? Was it generally like, okay, we're moving towards dine-in, but this is obviously a good idea. I want to flip Marion back to being the fantastic wine bar it is, but this thing's obviously working. Or the site came up, or what was the process there?
The site was always there, empty, and Morning Market, I wanted to prepare Marion to reopen because there was signs that we were going to be able to open in the next month or so. So I made the decision to rename that space or that business and move it next door to Cutler, 2 doors down, and call it Morning Market. Because as much as I love Marion Grocery and the connection to bread and wine, being a wine bar and having a bakery, I wanted it to have its own 2 feet, not feel as though it was a pop-up from COVID. So, we're kind of breaking our shackles a little bit and starting fresh and having Morning Market standalone business that's sustainable and has a future. So, it's a process of evolution, and it's just evolved as the environment has.
I, as a regular at your venues of some years standing, it's a very different vibe at Morning Market. It's identifiably a McConnell vibe still, but having eaten at Gimlet, for instance, it's a glittering palace of mid-century splendor. I feel like you have maybe spent less money on Morning Market per square foot. Have you approached it differently because you're opening it this side of the global health crisis?
Absolutely. It was very much a post-COVID budget there that we cobbled together. Mike gave me a shelf. The architects who operate next door, who originally designed Meatsmith, had some old shelving bays from the renovation from 5 years ago in storage and repainted those for us. So yeah, it is a very different experience, and it's kind of like the fact that it's not over designed. It's something that we've collectively put together. It's been quite organic in how it's come to sit there, and I think people have really enjoyed it because it's given people reason to get out of the house and given everyone a retail experience, something that we were all missing.
Did you, when you were doing your P&L for it, or your business plan for it, I should say, did you actually have the benefit of some numbers from the Marion Baker Blue collab that you could sort of use as the basis for kicking the tires on its likely its chances as business?
Yeah, we had a good, I suppose, almost 3 months of trade, so we had an understanding of how it could stack up.
Yeah, and that's worst case scenario trade. Like that's right. That's trading in COVID.
Yeah, exactly. But I think for bakery and butchers and some businesses actually did quite well once people got used to shopping with restrictions and social distancing and mask and sanitisation and things like that.
Oh, of course. So it's not necessarily worst case scenario. It might,
yeah,
you might hit a bit of equilibrium once regular venues open up more.
Well, what we've found is with regular venues have reopened, things have dropped a little bit.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You'd factored that
in food retail.
You'd factored that into your plan for Morning Market?
Yeah, we had considered that, and it certainly, it's dropped at least 20% across the board,
yeah.
And that's fine. But what we're finding now are people are sitting outside and eating a sandwich and having an extra coffee or having a drink, so they're using it differently. So instead of just shopping and taking it home, they're staying on the street, which is quite nice as well.
Now, because I am an appalling host, even though I've spent most of my year on Zoom, I neglected at the beginning of our conversation to say to everyone in the audience, if you have a question that you would like to ask our team, there's a question button down the bottom, and that'll go through to the whole crowd. And if they're not, if it's an awesome question, I'll ask it of the crew. And I say that because the questions come through for Shane. Shane, Sophie would like to know, well, first Sophie would like to say, Providoor is so good, ! And people will never stop coming to restaurants for the experience if they can. But do you, Shane, see Providoor as a business that will continue to be viable after a vaccine for COVID is found?
100%. I mean, just because Providoor was born in COVID doesn't mean it gets cured with a vaccine once it's gone. I mean, I think most people will say in the industry that there's so many beautiful things about our industry. It's why we're all addicts to it. I mean, I love it. I never want to be out of it. Some of us cook, some of us write about it, some of us, just dine in hospitality venues. But there's an underlying want and desire from consumers to have our products in their home to create other experiences. I mean, people do like dining at home. They're going to dine at home. Why not dine with us? So, I mean, we see a resurgence in the dinner party. We think that those times and those places should be held with Melbourne's or Australia's best restaurants. No, we don't see Providoor going anywhere. We have seen, as Andrew highlighted, we have seen a drop in Providoor in the last few weeks, as anticipated. I mean, everybody's rejoicing in the opportunity to get back into our venues, which we all want. I mean, I'm actually a bit nervous. We're opening our restaurant tonight. We're opening Maha in a number of about 3 hours, and Layla in a few more hours after that. It's a nervous energy that I can't wait for. But we do realise that we've got millions of dollars of gift vouchers yet to be redeemed. You know, there's corporate deals that we've just struck for January, February, and March. It's not going anywhere. I mean, and what it does is it takes a restaurant's 200, well, maybe 50 seat capacity in the modern world, and it expands it to millions of Victorians. So no, I think that Providoor is definitely something that's here for the future. I'm reliant of it in my businesses. I think that we've forecasted some of the drop we're seeing in our traditional bricks and mortar. We're forecasting a portion of that revenue to now come from what we do with Providoor. And it's a sustainable model where we're not paying penalties after hours, and it can be quite cost effective.
And you probably have lost interest, I would imagine, in a non-diversified business model now, having seen
100%. Even a traditional business model, like, I'm not saying I don't want to open more restaurants. Of course, I want to open more restaurants, but they won't be in the old model. They won't be just what we can, massive front of house, small back of house, and then that's it. I might be looking for my sites a little bit differently. Can there be a production facility? Is there an opportunity for pickup and delivery from the back to cater for a Providoor model? Is there a retail component? They can't just be what it has been, because what it has been isn't flexible enough for situations like this. And this is a new world. Who knows what's going to happen tomorrow? Who knows if this is going to raise its head again? We can't just keep going back to a broken model. And our hospitality model has been broken for a long time. So this has given us an opportunity to really think outside the square, still do what we love and create great experiences. But we're in the hospitality business too. We have to actually treat it like a business and start to think about how we're going to safeguard ourselves for the future.
I remember before COVID, the word I was getting, the word that started with P, that I was getting really sick of hearing in hospitality, was passion. And passion, has its place in rooms other than the kitchen, I think. What concerned me about hearing passion over and over again, and don't let these baby-face good looks fool you. I've been writing about food and drink for 20 years. What concerns me about passion is that the more I hear it, the more it's used to paper over gaps in business plans, in sustainability, in people's own mental health, and maybe that's something that we can address going forward. Audrey, with that in mind, passion's still necessary. We still need that thing to get us out the door and say, hey, I'm going to do this thing, of course. But what's your next step for Holy Sugar? As you're in the first room of this business, the first step, it's looking good. Have you got a plan for how you'd like to grow the business? If you want to grow the business, in fact. That's not to say that it might not be exactly where you want it to be. It doesn't have to, be like this.
I have a written down plan of where I see Holy Sugar going. I only started Holy Sugar 3 months ago, and it started from selling $3 slices of tart to my housemates to this now. So I know that what's going to happen in the future will be amazing. I have no doubt about that, but I'm not too stressed about what it will actually be. I definitely have a lot up my sleeve, and I am prepared for whatever I might have to do. If I have to start to grow in order to keep my clients, then I will. But at the moment, I'm still selling out within a couple of hours. It's quite, I don't really have to open up my shop tomorrow. Do you know what I mean? But I'm prepared to do that if I have to. If someone approaches me with the opportunity to do that, I'm not going to just turn it down. it'll be amazing, but it's not something I'm thinking about doing within the next couple of days or weeks.
Can I ask you, Andrew and Shane, if you were speaking to someone in Audrey's position, or perhaps someone who hadn't yet taken the plunge and started a business like Audrey, but like many of the people who are joining us today, has a great idea. You know, they're probably a hospitality professional who has some years under their belt and some experience and is seeing some opportunities. I mean, in the course of these forums over this year, we've heard, you know, how you two, I'm sure, have been offered plenty of sites in the last couple of months from eager realtors who say, turn the key, it's yours for how many dollars? Not many, you know, fully kitted restaurant or shop ready to roll. Are the things I'm saying sounding familiar?
Yeah, absolutely. I think that there's the thing about growth. It's talking back to Audrey's point is, I mean, it's important not to grow just for the sake of growing. I think that, you know, there's no real rush. If you're an industry professional and you're for the long game, take your time, be considered, and grow for the right reasons and in the right direction that you want to go. You know, and usually if you take your time and you do that, there's less compromise, better chance of success as well.
What are the big challenges right now? Like, what are the big challenges that COVID has brought straight off the bat, Andrew?
Oh, well, first thing that comes to mind for every restaurateur is numbers, bums on seats. You know, we still don't have a path yet. We're still waiting, I think, to the 24th for another announcement. So at the moment, with 40 covers, you know, 150 restaurant like here, we can't open. We're hoping we can open shortly. But it's just the unknown that's the most difficult right now.
And beyond that, Shane, what are the one I'm hearing over and over again pre-COVID, now even more so with COVID, is staffing.
Yeah, I mean, staffing's a big issue. I mean, I think that every restaurant in Melbourne is looking for staff at the moment. You're seeing ads everywhere. I know that you've been a big supporter of that, Pat. But, you know, we've lost a big chunk of our workforce. I mean, they were all exiled out of the country. They're not coming back anytime soon. So there is a critical loss of numbers. But I think, you know, talking back a little bit earlier, we spoke about risk. I think, you know, and I like to take calculated, measured risk. The numbers don't add up right now. You can't take a lease like on the beautiful building that Andrew's in now, know what the square meter is and what the rent's going to be, and then you can do your business plan and say, okay, I can fit in X amount of people. This is going to be my spend per head. This is my overheads. This is what the number's going to spit out. You can't even do that now. You don't know what the numbers are going to be. The rents haven't dropped that significantly that it actually makes viable, you know, a business viable. My advice would be, if you are going to do something now, you really consider it. You minimize your overheads so you can flex. Like I think what Audrey's doing, it's a really smart move. There's very, you know, few fixed costs. You can scale down. You can turn it off if you needed to. You know, there's no employees you have to let go. There's yes, it's in one instance, is it just buying yourself a job? Well, yeah, it probably pretty much is just buying yourself a job. But you can also scale that up if you need to over time. Like Andrew's saying, be considered, take the steps when you need to, surround yourself with the right people. But I wouldn't be, and I'm not going to be, putting myself in a fight that I can't fight. Like, you know, I always use boxing analogies because I love boxing. If you're getting into a fight with a boxer, you study the boxer that you're about to fight, you work out where his weak points are, and that's what you attack. Right now, we've got no idea who we're fighting. The challenger changes every day, and I'm not willing to get bruised up for nothing. So I'll just sit back and protect what I have, try to diversify and find the right opportunities, but I wouldn't be jumping in a ring at the moment.
What are we seeing, panel? I'm going to throw this to you in general. What are we seeing as the opportunities for heading into 2021? You know, is this you know, you talk to some people and they say, what we're living through now is just a part of the cycle of humanity. It's always been with us. The other camp is saying, you know, we're living in a world that's changed utterly and forever, and we need to completely rethink the way that we're going to do things. What is it?
21, my prediction, I'm treading water for another year. You know, vaccine or not, I think that there's just too many unknowns ahead. I think, prepare for the worst, and hopefully we'll be wrong, basically. Batten down, try and create, alter your business model if you can to be more sustainable and cost effective as you run it. And that's about it, really. I really don't see things changing. And I think hopefully if we can keep the double donuts going, and people can start returning to the restaurants and the numbers can increase, then gradually we can slowly get back to whatever COVID normal is. That being said, I'm still a little bit skeptical about consumer confidence next year as well, even though we haven't got a vaccine, and even though we've somewhat suppressed, I suppose, clusters and outbreaks, there's still not a strong consumer confidence out there about coming back to restaurants.
I think, Pat, that there's a lot of different parts of business, and like Andrew said as well, there's no rush to open things. The opening of a restaurant is the last step of business. Like you do all of this stuff before you open a business. Use this time now as an opportunity to build other assets, build your knowledge, build your relationships. For me, that's the biggest part of business. Forget the architects and the food and the wine list and all the wank. Worry about the relationships. The relationships are the most important bit in business. Relationship with your staff, with yourself, with your family, but with an industry outside our own industry. Start to get to know people from other industries, invest in them. So when you are faced with a fighter like coronavirus, you've got so many more weapons in your arsenal. It's not just what you would normally have. Now's not the time to be diving head into open anything. And for the smart and the strong, at the end of all this mess, there'll be a lot of shrapnel. And in there, there'll be a lot of gold. So just sit back and just wait for the riches.
I've seen a lot of support from Melbourne. I feel like since COVID happened, and I feel like in the future, there still will be a lot of community support, which I hadn't really seen since being in Melbourne, which has been 3 years now. And I was so surprised and grateful for that. And I feel like in the future, there still will be that, which I think is amazing. Like everyone is just so willing to support if they know about it. I think there's a massive positive as well. And encouragement for people who, like me, want to start their own thing now. Like everyone's so for it because it is scary, But I think, start small or go big. I don't think that there's like much of an in-between. It's very small, or take that massive leap and do something big, like getting your own shop. But I wouldn't suggest doing that straight away. That's not what I'm doing anyway.
What were the speed bumps on your path, Audrey, these last few months?
My first speed bump was probably starting the business in 4 days. I leaped into it just like that. Like I wrote up a label, like a design and everything, 4 days, packaging, orders, and I had over 50 orders straight up, which I managed. And I still have so many customers from that first week that still order, which is amazing. But I actually was a mess afterwards I was like, oh my God, I'm going to have to tell everyone that I can't do this anymore. Like, what have I got myself into? I've actually shot myself in the foot. And I'm so glad that I didn't send that message, because I was so close to saying to everyone, I can't do it. It's too much. But I pushed on. And I think it's about choosing your battles, and definitely understanding mental health. And I've had some hurdles with mental health, and I had 1 week off, I think a month and a half into when I first started, because I knew that I just couldn't do it that week. But other than that, I think just knowing when to, how far to push yourself, how many orders to take, don't go too crazy, because you don't have to.
What about you, Andrew? I mean, you jumped in, you turned things around very quickly with Marion and Baker Blue. Were there a couple of, oh fuck moments once you'd actually got it rolling, or?
All the time. And Shane could probably, sympathise there, but I think there were weekly oh fuck moments, whether it was coming from the Premier's office, or from our landlords, or from suppliers, and, helping staff, helping out.
What about maybe things that you could have planned for but didn't just because you were flying by the seat of your pants?
It was complete freefall. It really was. But I think that I'm really happy with the people who I work with, how they took that on and supported me and the business, stepped out of their comfort zone. And, you know, it was a real shock for a lot of us for a few weeks, but it's really created a really solid, I suppose, management team and restaurant team, a group of people who are tighter than ever. And, you know, the energy in the room today opening Supernormal was phenomenal. So
have you personally had to do different things? I mean, I know you've had sommeliers who've been section waiters and, you know, people who are used to managing fancy restaurants doing retail, and everyone on your team doing everything. What about you?
Yeah, I think everyone's done a lot of everything. Everyone's jumped in. The camaraderie has been fantastic. Everything from, you know, prepping food or picking herbs or packing boxes. Myself, I just think when I wasn't spinning out of control, you know, I was always trying to anticipate, you know, and try and forward plan what's next, what's coming next. So, you know, reading between the lines of what was coming out as far as numbers and COVID and reopenings, and trying to maintain fresh and interesting menus for our take-home boxes and Providoor, and keeping that evolving was actually really quite difficult. But I think looking back at, you know, the last lockdown, we've got, you know, 18 new complete menus that, you know, and a lot of great recipes and ideas that have come from that. So I think we've got a great arsenal now that we've built as a kitchen.
We've got a question from the audience, which is probably more for Andrew and Shane. Tony would like to know how you're finding reopening your businesses.
Amazing.
You want to jump on that? Amazing. There we go.
Yeah, I can't wait. I keep, sorry to be a prick, but I keep looking at the watch going, is this going to end soon? Because I want to get into it. I can't wait. I am so excited. I'm conflicted a little bit because I've loved what we've done, you know, during COVID with Providoor, and we've got a team now stationed at the Hotel Sofitel, and they're using the banquet kitchens there, and they're producing all the stuff there. But I can't show, like, up to that window there, where that light is. That's Layla outside. I can see it all lit up, and I can hear the music and hear the guys in the. I'm ecstatic. I can't.
And for people in the audience who are not familiar with Layla, Shane, give us the pitch in a nutshell.
So we took, you know, as soon as we heard that the City of Melbourne were open to doing some amazing activations, we reached out and really went hard. And Sally Cap and her team are absolutely amazing, and they gave us an opportunity to shut down a portion of Bond Street, which is where Maha is, and we've set up a temporary structure, but it's there till late March, which houses up to 80 people, and it's got a kitchen and a cool room and a whole lot in it. And Layla's going to be an expression of the summer we've lost, because, you know, I was planning on going and traveling a little bit and seeing all this kind of stuff, but I'm not doing it anymore, so I'm bringing it here. So it's an expression of a Middle Eastern Mediterranean summer. It's going to be there all until, you know, the end of March, and I can't wait to get stuck into it.
Actually, you make a good point there. I mean, no one's leaving Australia anytime soon. Australians actually spend quite a few more $1 billion overseas than overseas travelers spend in Australia. So if we can manage to capture even 2/3 of the Australian tourist spend that normally goes overseas, we'll actually be in pretty good shape in Australia, and particularly in Victoria. When the borders reopen, which is very soon, hopefully, if the numbers keep going the way they're going to go, what are ways that Victorian businesses can maximise wringing those dollars from thirsty and hungry Sydney-siders and Adelaideans and even people from Brisbane?
I think there's tons of ways. I mean, we need to create unique experiences that are Melburnian. I think that at the end of the day, that's what we do well here in Melbourne. I mean, we have a very strong idea on what Melbourne hospitality is about. We do it at a very high level, and it's quite unique. But on the flip side, and this is putting my Providoor corporate hat on again, we're about to start taking all of our 50 partners across the East Coast. So we've just thought, okay, well, those tourism dollars aren't here. The hospitality industry needs them. So we're going to go out and get them. So, you know, we'll be doing 2 or 3 runs a week all the way up to Noosa, to ACT, Sydney, and everywhere in between, in an effort to try to get some of that dollars and that love and that connection with customers that we long for back into the state.
I think Guy Grossi just dipped the toe in that. He did a sellout Grossi package in Sydney just a couple of weekends ago, actually.
Yeah, for the NRL.
Market for that.
Yeah, it's good. I mean, we were in the studio all day yesterday shooting the new TV ads, and we just bought a big chunk of airtime, so we're banking on it.
Very good. I think we should probably round it up, but because you've got restaurants to open and donuts to make. What I'd really like to get from each of you is just a couple of action points, things to write down for the people in the audience who, despite your best advice, have decided to open a new venture of their own right now, whether they're an existing restaurateur or someone like Audrey who's taking the plunge for the first time. Audrey, do you want to kick off?
Don't overthink it. If you want it bad enough, then I'm sure you can make it. It's surprising what you can achieve if you put your mind to it. It's not as scary as it might sound. I'm 20. I turned 24 just as I did this, so I'm young. If you're young, it's fine. You can do it. Nothing should really hold you back.
Good advice for 24-year-olds.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think there's a lot to to take in and prepare. And like what Shane said earlier, this is a great opportunity, a great time to really build those foundations, refine your ideas, talk to people, really consider your resources, your IT. There's so much out there now on the marketplace. Don't buy the first thing. Always bargain as well to try and get the best price for the IT that you're using, platforms. But there's no real rule book for opening a restaurant or guidebook. So, as much as advice there is out there, I think the best thing, and what I usually work to and talk to is, you come down to your gut instinct and being honest to yourself and also your guests. So I think that, gut instinct goes a long way. But as well, listening to the market, not being too proud, and I suppose making those tough decisions. Try not to get too romantically involved on the first date with a site or a location.
Yeah, I mean, I think they're really fun. I mean, I think for me, it's pretty simple. And it doesn't matter if it's COVID or non-COVID. I think they're good business practices. Is that just identify why you're doing what you're doing. You're getting into a business. So you have to run it like a business. And we sometimes get caught up in the industry with the romance and all the rush and the sexiness, but it's a business at the end of the day. And like any bad relationship, unless you give it enough love and nurturing, it can become very hostile pretty quickly. So you need to spend enough time on it, make sure you assess it properly and choose the right partner. But also those first handful of customers you get, you need to cherish them. I mean, especially if it's a first business. Like I still hold those people really close to me, and they're still dining with us 13 years later. I know Andrew's got the same relationship with his guys. They're on a first name basis. They have each other's mobile numbers, and they become your foundation. Like those people that come in and are willing to use their hard-earned dollars, and their dollars are probably worth more now than they ever were. Really cherish those people because they will be your best form of marketing. They'll be there when you need someone to fill the dining room, and they'll always remember that you were that chef or that waiter or that restaurateur that came out and met them because you were so grateful on the first night. So really get to know your people.
Do you still have people from Dining Room 211, Andrew?
We do a lot.
I know I'm one of them. So
yeah.
I'm still here 20, God knows how many years later. So
yeah, and I think what's really important is not to take any customer for granted, ever. And it's quite interesting. This last 6 months of COVID and various lockdowns, the support from our customer base, who are now a lot of our friends of the business, and the goodwill that has come back has been phenomenal. And the support, whether it be text messages, emails, or people coming and supporting us in the business, has been quite amazing actually on the street. And it's been quite moving actually.
I think that's been one of the really encouraging things about 2020 is in the midst of all this awfulness is people really pulling together. So yeah, let's hope that that's something that survives the pandemic and the vaccine. Let's draw a line under it there, friends. We've got restaurants to open. Good luck, Shane. Good luck, Andrew. If you're around the CBD, stick your head into Cumulus Inc. and Supernormal. They have both just reopened, joining Andrew's other venues. The Builders is open, Andrew and Marion. Of course, all the Meat Smiths have been rocking the whole time. Morning Market is new. It is rocking.
And Cutler opens tomorrow.
I beg your pardon?
Cutler & Co opens tomorrow.
Oh, Cutler & Copen opens tomorrow. Look at Gimlet is open for private functions at the moment, and you're looking to reopen at the end of the month for regular bookings.
Yep.
Shane, you're opening Layla any minute now. Where else, apart from Providoor, of course, can we get your goodness at the moment?
Maha kicks open tonight as well, so that's doing really well. And both Maha East and Maha Bar, we're opening just for private events at this stage.
The flagship. So good to have you back. And you're doing breakfast at Layla, which I think is super exciting.
Yeah, can't wait. I mean, weekend sort of brunch, 9 till 12, which is going to be fun. Yeah, it's going to be cool. Really looking forward. I haven't served breakfast since I was like a third-year apprentice, so it's going to be fun.
It'll be something. I don't know about fun, but it'll be fun for us.
Yeah.
Audrey, for those members of the audience who haven't yet hopped on, where can we find you? At symbol Holy Sugar. There's an underscore in there somewhere, possibly 2 underscores.
Yeah. Find me on Instagram.
Lay it down for us. Holy Sugar.
2 underscores.
2 underscores. It's that easy, ladies and gentlemen. And you can find me at www.melbournefoodandwine.com.au or mfwf.com.au all the time. This has been our last forum for the year, but we will be back for 2021. We have a few exciting, thrilling projects still to come from Melbourne Food and Wine Festival in the year 2020. So stay tuned on all of our channels. I'd like to say a big thank you to the festival's principal partner, the Bank of Melbourne, and to our destination partner, Visit Victoria, for your continued support throughout 2020, and to a whole bunch of other existing and new sponsors who've done great things with us over the course of this year. Thank you. I'd like to thank all of our panelists, Andrew McConnell, Audrey Allard, and Shane Delia. Thank you all. It's been great speaking to you. Most of all, though, I'd like to thank you and every one of you out there in the internet for joining us. I hope today's session has been helpful. If you've got some suggestions for forums you'd like to see next year, or other things you'd like to hear Melbourne Food and Wine Festival talk about, or as we head back into doing real life events, ladies and gentlemen, things you'd like to do in real life, hop onto our website and socials and leave a message. We would love to hear from you. I'm Pat Nourse. Thank you and good afternoon.